to episode 13 of the Bithell Games Podcast. I'm Alexander Slawinski.
And I'm Mike Bithell.
Each week we talk games, what it's like to make games, and the random stuff we don't generally find the time to talk about because we are playing and or making games. We also try to have guests regularly on the show, and this week we've got Donna Orlowski of Chucklefish, who developed Starbound, but also have published some very cool games like Risk of Rain and really knocked it out of the park recently with Stardew Valley. Hi, Donna.
Hi, everyone.
So some quick show notes. Another week of big thanks to everyone telling their friends about this show and our new subscribers. We had a very nice double-digit increase in listeners over the last couple of weeks. So
10 whole people. That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you, all 10 of you. We should read out their names at the end of every podcast. It would be nice.
They should contact us at contact@bithellgames.com. That's contact@bithellgames.com. Let us know if you're a new listener, and we'll make sure to read your name on next week's show.
Oh dear, oh god, that's going to be like a 3-hour. Okay, fine.
So anyway, yeah, we've seen a significant increase since our Game Developer Conference episode. So thank you for joining us on this journey about games and game development. So, Donna.
Hi.
Donna, who has some sick people in the office.
I'm so sorry, yes.
So Donna.
Please don't cough.
So Donna, that is part of your...
we don't have meeting rooms, so I'm sitting in an open space with about 8 people just right in front of me. So you might hear every now and then somebody say something. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
We like to make our guests feel awkward. It's
good. It's good. And part of your job, Donna, is to tell people to stop coughing, right? That's
in my description, yeah. It's pretty much been since the beginning of my career. It's sort of Donna will tell people off. Yeah.
Well, let's segue. Let's use that seamlessly. So tell us about your career. How did you get started, Donna?
I started in 2003, completely randomly applied for a job as a PA for this larger-than-life personality that said he needs somebody to help him out in a London office. I went to the office and I saw a guy in flip-flops and shorts and a tank top, and he was like, so yeah, I'm working in the games industry and we're making a game called RuneScape and I need somebody to help me. So I said, okay, fine. And after about 4 hours of sitting there with his old PA and looking at the stuff she was doing, she kind of said, okay, I'm done now. The job is yours and you can stay. And I'm like, okay, great. So I haven't spoken to my boss for the first 4 days. I was just sort of sat there trying to understand what am I doing. And then I was taken to Cambridge to see the office. And I walked in and there was 30 guys in hoodies and beards. And I did not know where I walked into. But very quickly, I became part of the team. And that's where it sort of started, with RuneScape.
And where did you go from there? What, I know you were at Bossa, which is another UK studio.
So I've been in games ever since. From Jagex, I decided to leave Jagex because there's a lot of changes internally, and it sort of felt like my role might have now been done by other people within other departments, and I sort of decided I'm going to do something else. And I end up in Datascope Recruitment, which is a games recruitment company, for about 10 months, just sort of as a pit stop. And as I walked through the door, Enrique, who I've met at Jagex, said to me, look, I'm going to start on my own game studio, and you just be patient and I'm going to take you on. And I was like, okay, fine. And then about another 6 months later, we kept talking, and Bossa happened. So I came into Bossa, and there was, 6 of them at the time.
There weren't many of us. And it was the smallest office ever. Mm-hmm. It was pretty much like a cupboard. But great time there. We grew to about 42 by the time I was leaving.
Extremely superb experience in terms of what I've learned and the people I worked with, and then I took another break and I did a bit of freelancing for about a year with different small or micro teams within games, helping them with their admin and HR. And then one day, Mike, funny enough, sent me a message saying, hey, there's a guy named Finn Bryce who's looking for somebody.
That was me, wasn't it? I completely forgotten. Oh, okay.
That was totally you. And then the same day, I met with Finn in Canary Wharf. And then by 6 o'clock, I was already setting up employees' records.
Oh, that's awesome. I think it was, I'm remembering this now. I genuinely have completely forgotten that I put you two in touch because Finn basically, I think I just got an email from him or something just saying we need a grown-up. And immediately the one name that came to mind was yours. So for our audience, we should probably ask you so what exactly do you do? What is your job title, but also what do you actually really on a day-to-day do?
How much time do you have?
We have lots of time. Me and Alexander were joking earlier before we started that there's not many people who do what you do who are on podcasts and things, so it's actually a really a secret part of the games industry that no one ever talks about, so it's very interesting to I think people can.
The way I always see it is the part that no one really wants to do, but at the same time it's extremely beneficial to any team, any business, and the way I see myself throughout starting with any startup I was part of, there are so many jobs that need to be doing and somebody has to fill them and somebody has to do it. So the best approach in a startup is to be very hands-on and try to contribute as much as you can. So for me, it sort of moved from very basic administrative tools and administrative tasks on a daily basis to much larger, much more fulfilling responsibilities. So at this stage of my career, my role has changed yet again to a point where I look after the business, and I look after the business from the side of internal and external relationships. Anything starting from basic accounting to HR, recruitment, business relations, third-party deals, legal arrangements.
I'd actually like to take this in two steps because Chucklefish is actually an amazing example of a company that's seen tremendous growth over the last couple of years. So we should probably take this in two steps.
Sure.
One of them being, the Donna of Chucklefish, 2 years ago, and the Donna of Chucklefish now, because I am positive that your role, in there and the things that you are doing or have been doing, has changed significantly. So let's go back in time a little bit to
I'm gonna try to remember
the Donna of Chucklefish, where it was a few people, just a few people, really startup stuff.
I mean, for us, it was even more bizarre because Chucklefish team at the time when I met Finn was placed all over the world, and literally all over the world. We had people in America, in Australia, all over Europe, and obviously in the UK.
And the focus was on Starbound at that time.
And the focus was purely on Starbound. Starbound only by that stage was around for about a year in early access. And we had a very good year. It came to a point where the work, remote work, started becoming a bit more uncomfortable for everyone to be available at the same time, for everyone to understand what they're doing. So because Starbound grew as it did, we were in a financial position where it was much easier to bring everyone over, and that's what we decided. We got everyone a visa, and we brought everyone into the country. Now, my job was literally at that stage to come in and sort the visas out. And that was my first task, to actually meet the team, get to know the team, see what needs to be done, and bring them over.
And so how many countries were you dealing with at that time? Because this isn't like a simple like, oh, I was just trying to bring in a couple folks from America. Like you were saying that you had people all over the world. So
Sure.
how many different visas from how many different countries were you trying to deal with?
So there was, in terms of visas, there was 3 visas, and there was 3 separate country visas, and then there was Europeans. At the same time, a lot of the team members were very young, so they never really actually traveled. So for them, the experience of moving to another country was very stressful. So having to help them manage and the relocation process is what was one of the things that we were very involved in. And again, for me, that was very important to make sure that when they arrive in the UK, they can feel safe and in a safe environment. So on that note, we actually had to get an office to bring everyone in. Considering people work with each other at that time for already 2.5 years online, they never met. So it was quite a nice experience for everyone to sort of get together and actually say hello and see each other face to face. And yeah, so I think it was always Mike who would say my role is just being a mum in the office. and it's kind of always been like that. It's just all about looking after people who making this wonderful game. Because that's ultimately what my role always been and always will be, is to make sure that these guys have the right environment to perform at their best.
Do you think that mother role is a consequence of the state of the industry, or do you think that's something that's going to be, is that just a role the way it exists? Like, even if, even 20 years from now, do you think that changes, or how do you feel about that term being used?
I think in order to create a secure and safe environment, you're always going to need someone, regardless the industry, you're always going to need someone to look after the team. You're always going to need someone who can go around and understand every individual, or at least try to listen to every individual within the team and see and make life easier for them. This is probably a very universal role because it's not the literal mothering. It's more about understanding the needs and the requirements for a successful environment.
I think as well on a games team you have such weird, diverse personality types because you have artists, engineers, business people, like so many different ways of thinking that navigating that. I mean, I've always found that a challenge of working in games. It's just like talking to people and just completely not being on the same bandwidth as them. Like, and that's something that, wavelength, I think. Bandwidth is the wrong word. I used the wrong. See, already I'm falling into the trap I'm describing. But it's, and that's something that I think, HR, often that's kind of an overlooked aspect of the HR side of things. It's just like the actual, like, the relationship management and the kind of looking after everyone and making sure everyone's fine. But so how's that changed? How's that changed as the company's growing? Because how big is Chucklefish now?
We are 16.
16, okay.
Yes. So we haven't grown as much, but it's a very conscious decision. We're trying to run this company slightly different than any other studio I used to work at. And I, from the beginning, when I walked in, for me, it was about stripping down everything I learned and relearning the processes or creating new processes. This is a team that would never really take on your very commercialized or corporate environment where there was rules and regulations. We had to make our own. We created our own policies. We created our own relationships in a way that we have a very flat structure within the team. We do not have managers. We do not believe in having people in telling others what to do. Everyone in the team is treated equally to a point where you can imagine probably there's a lot of heated arguments, but
Sure.
but we also are very respectful of one another, and it never ends on a bad note. If anything, it helps create Starbound. It helps add to the game. Every step of the game is developed by the team being involved and trying to be involved on every level. We obviously have Finn on top of the structure in a way that when you have two people with two strong opinions, somebody has to make a call. But it is incredibly helpful to have somebody like Finn with his design skills to actually give another approach to potentially something that people can't see. So no, it's a wonderful feeling to be part of something that is leveled rather than something that requires reporting and delivering to somebody rather than to something, which is the ultimate product. So yeah, no, it's really cool, and my role has changed, and it's changing every day. I mean, just the last 4 weeks, as you mentioned, we launched a Stardew Valley. And I became a publishing manager. So it's pretty cool. And I love that there is so much flexibility in what we're doing and how we're doing things. But with a game like Stardew, there was a lot of business and administrative responsibilities that with the developer being a one man, we needed to help him. And so that's where I, again, had to step in. So as you can see, my role is really flexible, and I do what's needed to be done in gaps that are sort of around us. But every day today is different, and it's fun.
That's super cool. You basically seem to do whatever is necessary, effectively. Like, that's the whatever. You
can say that, but I mean, obviously things like running the day-to-day of HR and finances and reports and legal is all still my job, and it's always going to be my role.
So between starting at Chucklefish and like you, as you stated, doing the whole den mother thing, and now transitioning to a publishing manager.
That's just a temporary one, though. There will be something else in about 6 months.
It's just so, like, how do you even describe yourself? You're putting your hands in the air like, I have no idea. Like,
it's a difficult one, but at the same time, again, the way Chucklefish is, we don't really care for job titles. We don't care about your specific box. No one has a box. Everyone has a role, but that role can go from just being an artist, but at the same time, apart from being an artist, you also work with a developer of a future published game, or you work with a merchandise team to deliver merchandise products. So I probably would say most people in this team wouldn't have a job title to describe themselves by. But I sort of decided the easiest way to tell people is, when I tell people what I do, is I look after the business.
So do you believe in flat structures? Because I don't. So
that is a very good question.
I mean, I'm sort of curious because folks who listen to this podcast, and obviously folks who are in employment situations, there is this idea of companies like Valve and apparently companies like Chucklefish where there are these flat structures, and those structures terrify me to no end because I like to know who am I reporting to and who reports to me, and just so that there's a very clear understanding of what everyone does. And I can sort of understand in a situation like yours where, okay, it was, you put this team together and there was this sort of aspect of you were in control. So you can kind of state that there's a flat structure, but in the end, you do have the influence of being able to steer people in the direction that you want them. And as the team becomes 16, okay, that control sort of becomes a little more, all right, I've worked with these folks for 2 years. We have an understanding. There is a respect among us, so we can still be in this kind of flat structure. But, Stardew money is coming in, like, you know, Starbound, whatever is gonna happen. Like, you're not in control the way you were before, and you won't have these personal relationships. So how do you manage that?
Okay,
is it about not growing, right? Is that what the trick is? To stay small.
If you asked me that question 2.5 years ago, I totally agree with you. And I'd be like, oh my goodness, if there's no managers, what are we going to do? And how are we going to get people to do work? And how is this going to work? Well, 2 years later, I have a team of incredibly individual, talented and self-driven people who got together because they love what they do. And we never taken away from them the ownership of every aspect of the game they're working on. So with 16, we find it as being an ideal number for people to be self-managed. We have people who had previously senior experience, and these are the people to go to. These are the people to brainstorm with. These are the people to help you. However, they're not the people that go and tell you what to do. So there is that difference. There is people with experience who can guide you, but these people are not there to tell you. So that's where I think it really lies. And I do agree with you, Mike, saying having a small team, it's doable. I would have concern going over 20, especially depending in what department. Because I think a team of 5 artists and then 5 coders and so on, it really fills itself, and it really works. With a bigger team, you might be completely right. It could have failed. But for us, we want to stay that way. And you mentioned Stardew Valley money coming in. Starbound, you're right, is coming out very, very soon. We have all these responsibilities, but we are already putting contingencies in place. So again, this is part of my role to think sort of 10, 12 months ahead and see what we're going to do. And we feel that we might make decisions that might not be very stereotypical or approved by other companies. But I'll give you an example. I'm looking at working with an external team to help out on Stardew Valley rather than bringing more people into the office, hiring more people. We feel very much like a family. And we respect that, and we want to keep that. I mean, it's always been, always was one of the main policies of this company is to make sure that we have a team that knows each other. So we might spend a little bit more money working with external teams, bringing some freelance contractors and so on to fill the gaps, but we would never really want to change the environment of the office. We'd rather take a step back and think again before making a choice to grow into sort of 30, 40, 50 people. That's not the aim of the company.
I think that's really cool. My view, I mean, me and Alexander differ slightly on the hierarchy question, although I think I probably fall somewhere in the middle in terms of my opinion of it. But I'd definitely say that as long as the entire company is flat, it works. Where I've seen it fail is where you have, because if you have hierarchy at the top, then that trickles down, and if power is something that's being traded, then people will fight over power at every level. So as long as you do the complete, like you say, the complete flatness, and then it becomes about the flow of respect, and it becomes about, well, Jane over there is a really great designer, so of course I'm going to incorporate her into this brainstorming meeting. Why wouldn't I? She's better than me. And that's the kind of thing when you don't have people kind of fighting to compete with each other on a staff, then people become more honest about where they want to get help and where they want to get support. So I think there's a lot of strength to it, and it's clearly working for you guys. So fair play. It
really is. Like I said, 2.5 years ago, you'd suggest that to me, I'd be like, oh my goodness, no. I would probably flip out and say, no way, this is not going to work. But with 2 years with this team, I don't see it any other way.
How much is that to do with recruiting? How much is that to do with getting people who are into that mindset?
Goodness, yeah, that's another very difficult one. Absolutely, recruitment is a key. finding the same type of people that want to work the same way. We've hired a number of people who came from a more structured environment, and it didn't work out. It didn't work out because simple things like, I want to see some detailed design documents, or I want to see, a day-to-day task list of my responsibilities. That's not us. It's never going to happen. We don't want to have you as a sort of a part of a chain. That's not the right environment. So yes, we had trials and tribulations in terms of bringing the right people, but so far so good. Again, having a team that met online on the forums for Terraria, it bizarrely worked out.
So my question is with that, like, so I want to go into this because the flat stuff always intrigues me. So let's say, for example, there's a thing you want to add to Starbound, like you want to add a new shoe to Starbound. It's going to be a shoe that attacks you. I don't know, something. And that needs there's people on the team who want that to be in there. The community wants it. It's something that has to happen because everyone wants it to happen.
Sure.
That requires, presumably an artist, a coder, a developer, how are you using boards? Are you moving Post-it notes around? Is it or is it just how does that actually happen? How do you not end up in this weird thing where there's just millions of ideas and nothing ever gets done? How does something literally go through and get made? So,
ultimately the main vision comes from Finn. He created Starbound in his head years ago, and we all believe in his vision. So the way the vision is transferred into what we want to do and how we want to take it forward is every month we would write down the areas that we're going to have to work on, concentrate on, and depending on the skills, people are either raising their hand saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to work on that. Or if no one wants to work, Finn is just there to delegate it. However, no one ever really gets to work on something they don't want to do. They would then share a responsibility with somebody else. And usually we try to really cut tasks so that nobody ends up with 2 months workload. So also it varied on the time of the development stage. So where we are right now, it's actually quite fun and really crazy because we're coming to really the near end of development. So you get to a point where we look at we use Trello on the spreadsheet. That's our tool.
You do. Okay,
right?
That's what I was edging around. Like, is there some
Yes.
Do you have a Google Docs account?
Yes. We have a very basic, absolutely basic spreadsheet where it says, giving you an example, I don't know, snow biome has to be done, right? That's as far as it goes in terms of detail. We then have an artist jump in and say, look, I have a vision, I want to do this. We let them do it. Once they're done, they ask for feedback. There might be a few comments. Generally, feedback is taken. If something has to be changed, it changes. If it doesn't, usually we leave artists with their own interpretation, and it works. It really works. So yes, in terms of tools, very simple spreadsheet and a Trello for the daily tasks. But that's about it. Considering cool. Starbound being so big, incredibly big game in terms of development, it took us 5 years. I think we did pretty well, and the flat structure worked.
So thank you so much for being on the show, Donna.
Sure.
So that's Donna Orlowski of Chucklefish, the person who gets stuff done.
Oh.
Yes. And has no job title. The developer with no job title. Yes. Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on. It's really cool.
Hey, thank you for having me.
So, Mike, we've bid adieu to Donna. And now we're going to discuss what's going on at the studio. So what's going on at the studio?
What's going on at the studio? Well, you're doing lots of stuff. You're doing a lot of admin-y kind of stuff, tax years, legal stuff, lots of things. You're busy doing all that stuff. And
taxes. Taxes are fun, by the way.
While you're doing,
we'll save that for like a later episode where like we know we've got the audience like locked in, and they're just like, I want to hear about tax.
Can I skip that episode? Can I not be here for that? I feel like I know. So while that amazingly exciting stuff has been going on with Alexander, I've had to bloomin' make a video game. It's been awful. So no, I've been in my kind of lockdown mode. So I've had nothing kind of coming in external. I've just been entirely focused-ish on making stuff, which has been great, actually. It's going really well. I got back from GDC a week ago, just over a week ago, and got to work, and we've started building. I built 2 more prototypes for different systems, and now I'm rolling those kind of 4 prototypes together now to form one amazing kind of project, hopefully. So yeah,
cannolis.
It's been a weird
calzones,
and it's
rolling pizza rolls, Tostitos pizza rolls, hot pockets. Oh, you're making a hot pocket.
I'm making a hot game pocket. This is horrible. I don't like the way this has gone. So yeah, and it was something you expressed some surprise at, this idea that kind of prototypes are combined, right? You figured it was.
I didn't. I never thought of it. I thought of. I didn't think of a prototype potentially being made up of 3 or 4, because the thing we're doing right now is 3 different prototypes.
It's
4.
It is 4 now.
4.
It's 4 separate. 4. There's 4 separate like scenes in my Unity folder. Each is a very different prototype. The reason being, I think we've talked about prototyping a little bit before on here, but essentially a prototype is a question. Prototype is, does this thing we think would be interesting and cool, is it interesting and cool? And the whole point of doing prototypes is often you find out, no, it really isn't. It's a terrible idea, it won't work. But in this weird case, we're doing a bunch of stuff that's different, stuff that's not similar to games we've done before. So there was more questions. So for me, before I kind of dove into like doing anything kind of full on, I just built out these prototypes, built out these little ideas.
And what's really interesting is that while you were making these prototypes, we kept asking in each of those prototypes, like, is there a game in there? Like, is there a game in that prototype? It's like, nah. Okay, go to something else. Is there a game in this prototype?
No.
Nah, keep going.
There was one that was very gamey, right?
Yeah, and so we got to the one that was definitely a gamey prototype, and then it was just like, okay, do these other aspects fit in, or could they fit in, or does it make sense to fit in? Because of course that's like the key thing, right? Like you definitely don't want that like awkward dissonance between.
No, we're not making a mini game collection,
right?
I for me it was an interesting shift, because with Thomas and Volume they were both very much like focused on one idea, like one thing I wanted to do in the game built around that. But I think, honestly, weirdly, it was going on holiday to Disney World, was walking around Disney World, and the great thing that Disney does in how it designs its parks and how it gets things done is it doesn't just focus on one thing. It has a through path, a storyline that it's telling you. Say, on one ride, they'll have a storyline, but then what they're trying to... They never just stop at one thing. A good example of this, there's a ride there called Expedition Everest, which is a roller coaster. And that has, as part of it, while you're queuing, you see kind of stories of the Yeti and stuff. It's all encased inside this enormous Everest mountain. But when you're on the actual ride itself, it is a roller coaster, so it has the thrills of being a roller coaster. It has an animatronic Yeti that chases you inside it, so it's sort of this animatronic show as well. It has a point in the roller coaster where you hit a dead end, and then you roll backwards, but the track has rotated its segment behind you, so you go down a completely different route, which surprises you. And from the outside, they create the illusion that it's a water ride because it has a splash, but that's entirely faked, and there's never a splash in the ride. So it's all these different segments of surprise and coolness that ultimately it's a 3-minute ride, but it keeps hitting you with these kind of innovative, interesting ideas that It really doesn't need to. It could just be a roller coaster. And any other theme park in the world, it would have just been a roller coaster. And that stuck with me. That was something that kind of influenced my thinking going into the next thing, that I didn't want to just make a game where there was one thing to talk about or one thing to show people that was, this is the thing this game's about. And I genuinely think we've got, I'd say 2 or 3 genuinely new ideas in this game. And that makes me very excited. Unless they're all awful.
Which we won't know until we're much further along in the process.
And that's why video game development's fun.
And now it's time for Reader Mail.
Excellent.
This Reader Mail comes to us from Brian F. He says, "Gentlemen."
Well, I like that gentleman is becoming a thing people say to us. That makes me... There's a respect that's happening that I kind of organically, I think that should be celebrated. Carry on.
Gentlemen.
Sorry. Yes.
Enjoying the podcast. Good. Alexander should remember stuffed mushroom recipe. Speaking of food, actually, it turns out I used to do a food podcast many years ago.
Okay.
And apparently he was the one that sent in the stuffed mushroom recipe that we had on the show.
That's amazing. He's been following your work ever since.
Mike, what is your food of choice for those days at the keyboard creating code, hitting the project hard? I can imagine some of us who write code, we get so engrossed in the project we forget to do some exercise or eat healthy. Was wondering what Mike's preferred method of accomplishing his project goals while maintaining his health. I can say that my better half is an outstanding cook, and she also is very good at reminding me to get some of those honey to-do list items out of the way. Lived in Scotland for 2 years, sure do miss the best fish and chips I've ever had. Brian F., a.k.a. Stuffed Mushroom Recipe.
That's awesome. I'll let him know the second I balance my my healthy living. No, I'm terrible. I'm really... I mean, I think I mentioned it in an interview and it became a thing. That I actually was hospitalized during the production of Volume because I was just living on energy drinks and takeaway food, and I got myself in a lot of medical trouble. So I'm not great, is the short answer. What I will say is I do better now, and I jog, I walk, I try and get my exercise in. I'm also I'm a chubby guy. I'm definitely not like an Adonis, but I do okay, and I'm definitely healthier than I was a year ago. In terms of food, I'm a vegetarian, which definitely helps with all of that, because I sort of I'm forced to eat healthy, and restaurants and shops assume, because I'm a vegetarian, that I want to live healthily. So the default as a vegetarian is usually, slightly better for you. But in terms of while I'm coding, I enjoy a pizza while I'm coding. I'm incredibly traditional. I even enjoy a Mountain Dew occasionally as well, because I like to keep the stereotypes going.
I'm just shaking my head in judgment.
You're right to. You are right to. And no,
I'm genuinely trying not to, because I try not to judge.
I'm awful, but the plan is to continue to try and get better. And I have been slowly improving my diet and my exercise, but it's been a slow process. It's been a slow process.
I also think you kind of have to with age.
Certainly, I get away with a lot less now than I did in my 20s.
Yeah. It is certainly something that there is a point in every young man or woman's life where their body just says no. No, you can no longer stay up until 2 a.m. without repercussions.
Yeah, and I hit that head first mid-volume. That was the problem. Yeah.
No, you can no longer eat an entire pizza and not have like indigestion or something along those lines, or B, not wake up and suddenly 2 pounds or 2 stone are added to the scale. I don't know what a stone is.
If I ever woke up and I was 2 stone heavier, I don't think I'd be able to walk. To give you an idea of the amount of weight that you just suggested a pizza will put on. Pounds, maybe pounds. I don't know. Ironically, I have to go to an industry thing tonight, so I have I have a pizza in the oven right now.
but it's also weird because part of studio. I mean, I'm not even aware. To be honest, the only example I can think of, and please, if you are like Donna and you are a studio manager or you work at a studio that takes the health of its employees seriously, like, please let us know, because the only example that I can actually pull from of a studio that I know that makes a conscious decision on this is CD Projekt. Their cafeteria is vegetarian only. So it's but most, I remember I know stories about studios where there was like the Hot Pocket debacle, where they stopped having Hot Pockets available for free, and there was like a mutiny. I've
worked in offices where there are free soda and free chocolate and stuff, and it's there, and if you have a certain personality type, and unfortunately I do, you just take advantage of that, and and that's not how we'll do things. I like the CD Projekt approach. I wouldn't necessarily make it vegetarian only. I think if someone wants to eat a healthy meat-based food, they're more than welcome to. It's a weird one. But then you go somewhere like like the Facebook cafeteria, and it's just this amazing, awesome food because it's all salads and great stuff, and it's that's very nice.
Yeah, in Boston, the joke used to be you always went to the Harvard Business School for lunch. Harvard Business School, Children's Hospital of all the things, actually also had an amazing cafeteria. But now the Google offices. That is where you secretly go and eat there.
These mega corporations, they know how to feed their staff.
I think they're doing all right.
They're doing all right.
If you have a burning question about games, game development, or just about the complexities of the universe, you can send those questions to us via contact@BithelGames.com, through the YouTube comments of this show, or on Twitter by pinging @MikeBithell, @Slewinski, or @VolumeGame. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Bithell Games Podcast. We can always use your support, so please provide reviews and 5 stars on iTunes, likes and subscribes on YouTube, and positive reinforcement on whatever other platforms you're hearing this show on whenever possible. And thank you for everyone who's been doing that. This podcast was produced by Jonathan Dannon. We will be back next week. I'm Alexander Slewinski. Thanks again, and get in the last word, Mike.